This is Victoria, BC, and she is Emily Carr, not the one that you think, Emily Saunders Carr. This man is Richard Carr. When they got married, 5 girls were born. The fifth one, which was born in 1871, was Emily Carr, the great artist that we know. Emily Carr begins her first drawing lessons with Emily Woods in 1880. After that, in 1890, she travels to San Francisco to take art lessons at the California School of Design, and she stays there until 1893. Then she returns to Victoria, where she was born, to teach children art classes in her studio in the cow barn on her family's property. Despite the fact that this picture looks younger, in 1899 she travels to England. She wanted to take art lessons in London at the Westminster School of Art. She stayed there until 1903. Her next travel was to Alaska in 1907. She travels there with her sister and decides to make indigenous totems and villages her principal subject matter. In 1910 and 1911, she travels to England and France for further training. Paris is an important point in her life because she grabbed a new style in her work after Paris. She worked with expatriate artists John Duncan Ferguson, Frances Hawkins, and Harry Gibb. In 1911, she returns to BC and lives in Vancouver. And after that, in 1912, she takes a major sketching trip to northern BC, where she depicts totems and everyday life in remote villages. She exhibits her indigenous images in Vancouver in 1930 and decides to return to Victoria to live. In the next 14 years of her life, she works as a landlady and a dog breeder. She paints very little during this period and instead produces ceramics and hooked rugs. In 1927, her work was included in the major exhibition West Coast Art, Native and Modern at the National Museum, Ottawa. And that's where she meets members of Group of Seven. One of them was Lauren Harris. He encouraged Emily Carr to return to painting by saying, "You are one of us." She then takes another major trip to northern BC in 1928. In 1930, she had solo exhibitions in Ottawa, Victoria, and Seattle. She turns her attention to the landscape itself. Encouraged by Lauren Harris, she produces series of paintings. But in 1937, she had a major heart attack. This heart attack significantly curtails her ability to travel. Thus, she turns more of her attention to writing. Emily Carr then publishes her first autobiographical book in 1941 and wins the Governor General Literary Award for Nonfiction. She takes her last sketching trip to Victoria, but she had another heart attack there which effectively ceases painting in 1942. She has a solo exhibition at the Dominion Gallery, Montreal in 1944, and in 1945 she dies in Victoria.